Good evening, guys. This is Dog Sports Live. It's game week. We've been here all off season talking and dissecting all the news and all the players and all the additions and subtractions. But we're here, Graham. Are you jacked up for the game?
I am jacked up, man. It's finally game week. We've been talking about this, for months and months. We've been talking about this Clemson matchup since it was announced the last summer. So, a little over a year. And yeah, man, I flew from Durango to North Carolina today. Got a early morning go dogs when I was boarding a jet in Durango at 6 a.m. Had a nice old couple that was heading east for the game as well. So felt like there was already some energy on a Tuesday morning. People are fired up, man. It's football season.
Yeah, Georgia travels well. It doesn't surprise me that there are more than just one dog out west coming to the game.
Very true. Well put.
Dogs out west coming. All right, so let's get to it. We've talked a lot about this. We've got two shows up on Georgia and Clemson, but we're going to get into this game week. So, what do you want to add to what we've already discussed on the other shows?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, like you said, we've done some pretty thorough breakdowns, so we obviously don't want to repeat any of that stuff. I think what I really have wanted to look at a little bit more from a UGA standpoint is just how is Georgia going to look when they attack this Clemson defense? And with Brent Venables, there's a really well-patterned style there. He's not secretive about what he's going to do. He's kind of old school, and we mentioned this before on one of our previous shows, but he loves to bring pressure, and he loves to bring exotic blitzes from all over the field in any sort of down and situation, and he particularly likes to make sure that the quarterback is going to feel some heat on third downs because he wants the ball out quick. He wants to force mistakes. So. Obviously, Clemson, their first game against Notre Dame in 2020, they lost. And as many Clemson fans have pointed out in our YouTube comments, I'm well aware that they were missing some guys for that game. But Notre Dame still had a good amount of success through the air in that football game, and I think we can learn from that. And so in that first game, Venables blitzed Ian Book on 55% of his dropbacks, and they only got pressure on about 32% of those plays. And so when you see Clemson blitz, there's an advantage there possibly if Georgia can hold them off. And so like that, that loss by Clemson, they did have some guys out in the interior line, and that's probably part of the reason why they were blitzing so much. So I would be surprised to see them blitz JT Daniels quite that much. But yeah, I mean, we covered it on here. Like when they were not able to get pressure with their front four, Book burned them, and Book exposed those cover zeros and loose zones. And we saw Justin Fields do the same thing for Ohio State. The second time that Notre Dame and Clemson played, Venables kind of adjusted his game plan, and he only blitzed Book on 28% of his dropbacks. And I think what's important to note is that Clemson got pressure on 36% of Ian Book's dropbacks in that game. So they were getting pressure with their front four. They weren't having to blitz. And because of that, it changed the number game. It changed the amount of guys that they had in coverage, and Notre Dame was not successful in that game on offense. So I think.
So what do you think? Do you think it'll be more of the second Notre Dame game where they're going to try to just put pressure on JT with the front four, or do you think they're going to have to bring more than those guys and to get pressure on us?
I think if you can answer that question right now, then you can predict who's going to win this game. Truthfully, like I think that's kind of the $1 million question, and if Georgia is able to at least hold up and hold off that front four and give JT time when they're just bringing four, I think that raises their odds in this game. If they're able to protect JT when Clemson blitzes, then Georgia will win this football game. I'm going to go ahead and just say that straight out because I think that's what the numbers bear, and I feel pretty good about it. will you throw up that little passing pressure chart we have on JT? Because I think the reason why I say that with such conviction is just that if you look, and this is PFF's grades for JT Daniels last year for his 4 games, but when he was kept clean, he was a 91.9 graded passer, which is really good. But if you look, when he was blitzed and when he was not blitzed, his passing grade is about the same. And so I think, there's a lot of quarterbacks, and particularly young quarterbacks are often known to kind of panic when blitzing happens, and, they try to get the ball out too quick, or they force decisions, and sometimes they don't keep their eyes downfield and they start looking for a place to run, and they run into that pressure. Daniels is not that guy. JT is going to, stand in the pocket. He's going to stand tall. He's going to be comfortable. And I think if you're a Georgia fan or a Clemson fan watching this for that matter, on Saturday night, when you see Clemson, creeping up into the box and bringing extra rushers, like those are probably going to be some of the pivot points in this game. I think that, there's a very good chance that the big plays either way, whether it's a havoc play for Clemson's defense and a sack or a fumble or a turnover, or a big play downfield for Georgia's offense, is going to happen when Venables blitzes. And, he's a guy that likes to force the issue. So I think we're going to see him blitz. I posted some stuff on Twitter last night about Daniels and how well he does against the blitz. And Matt Connolly with On3, the Clemson beat writer for those guys, mentioned that Venables said in his press conference yesterday that JT Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in the country against pressure. So I'm more apt to believe that we're going to see him, blitz less. I don't think he's going to blitz on half of Daniels' dropbacks or anything like that. But what I think is important to note is that, against Ohio State, he kind of employed that same sort of game plan. He just tried to get pressure with his front 4. He only blitzed on 29% of passing downs. And he kind of hoped his secondary would hold up if they had extra guys back there, and they didn't. So I think that's going to be sort of, what determines who wins this game.
We're breaking in a new center, and we've got some guys moving around, but they're not an inexperienced offensive line group. So, but you want to get to some plays?
Yeah, let's do it. I think first of all, I want to say we know Clemson's front 4 is good. We've talked about them a lot. They've been hyped by everybody, but this Georgia offensive line has been going up against Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter and Adam Anderson and all these guys, Nolan Smith.
We're gonna. So, and after that, at the end of this, I've got sort of that O-line versus D-line. Totally. We'll get to that in a little bit because it is. That's the reason we're talking so much about this, because that's where the battle's going to be won. It's cliche, like I wrote for Dog Sports, but that's right. It's 4 really good units, O-line and D-line for both squads. All right.
Yeah. 100%.
So this first play.
So yeah, and before while you're pulling that up, I think I want to stress also, we don't know if Darnell Washington is going to play on Saturday night, and if he does suit up or play, we don't know how healthy he is. We do know that John Fitzpatrick is healthy, and as much as this is probably going to anger some people, I think that might be even more important for Georgia in this game, just because of his skill set as a blocker and his experience. Yeah, so he is the highest graded returning pass blocker on Georgia's team by PFF. The only guy I think that had a higher grade was Broderick Jones, but those were garbage time snaps and only in a couple games. So Fitzpatrick blocks like an offensive lineman. Having him in the backfield is like having a 6th offensive lineman. I can't stress how important that is for Georgia. But yeah, he can also get out and catch the ball, and he can also kind of do that from some of those H-back positions. So if you want to kind of run those clips, because I think what we'll see Georgia do is some of these kind of packages like you've got right here. So a little bit of a situation where JT's moving the pocket, he's got some action. where he can either hit the running back or the tight end, just depending on who the defense takes and how things influence. And I think that is really key to have some of these kind of quick plays, quick passes, get the ball out early, just keep that defensive line from pinning their ears back. Here we see a similar type of delayed release concept with Fitzpatrick. The reverse angle on this is really nice. But, he's staying in as a blocker on this, and he gets a little chip, and he helps hold off the pass rush, and then he just leaks out on this little route, and there's nobody within, 12, 15 yards of him. Those are the type of plays that I think will be very, very open for Georgia on Saturday night if and when Clemson does blitz. And I think, Daniels showed us a lot, both in the spring game and in the Peach Bowl, that he is comfortable moving around, and, there can be guys bearing down on him, and he's going to make his throws. So here we've got Kyrus Jackson on a screen, but, you see Fitzpatrick come in motion there and get out and kind of provide that block that springs it. I think screens are so key to this ball game. When you're a kid and you're learning about football, what do you do to beat the blitz? It's screens and draws, right? And so I think that you're going to see Todd Monken get guys like Kyrus out there early. There's Jermaine Burton running the same exact concept, except for Trey McKitty is blocking that one. So I think whoever's in at tight end for Georgia, they will be able to do this and do it well. But I also want to kind of at least mention that folks need to watch out for Ladd McConkey on Saturday night. He's a name that I think we've been hearing a lot, and that some folks have been buzzing about. I know Rusty Mansell over at Dogs 24/7 predicted earlier this week, or maybe, last week, that he would have the most receptions of any player on the team, which is kind of wild. But yeah, I think that type of player who is shifty and good in space and can just kind of find little open windows and sit down in them and is good at reading a defense. And then I do predict as well that we're going to see an end around, man. I think that everything that we've seen from Clemson's D-line on tape, they are aggressive, and I think that they kind of have a little bit of a mentality that they have got to go out and make plays and get to the quarterback in a hurry because that secondary has struggled. And I think they feel the pressure of that a little bit sometimes. And I think that you can use that against them and let them influence upfield, let them, over pursue and catch them on some end arounds or even some throwback kind of action on a wheel route with a tight end or a running back kind of delay wheel route out of the backfield. So look for that, because I think that we'll see that from Monken. Those tight end wheel routes, especially, that was something he liked to run at Tampa Bay with OJ Howard, was leave him in the block, let him chip somebody, and then let him slowly leave.
And these are all plays and concepts that are designed to get the ball out quickly, like you say, to beat that pressure and stuff. So that's the best way, if they're going to blitz and bring pressure, is just, get the ball out quickly, and then you've slipped into the second level pretty quick with a guy. And we have so many. These aren't just dump off you're getting ball to playmakers. Fitzpatrick is, people forget how good he's. A 4-star tight end that can block and catch and run. So
right. He's 6'6", 250 pounds in his own right. He's a stud. And he was highly recruited, and he had offers from lots of big programs too. So not that we don't love Darnell, because we love Darnell. And I do think Darnell is probably more of a downfield threat than Fitzpatrick is. But my concern for Georgia in this game is not that they have a lack of downfield threats. My concern for Georgia in this game is holding up. And, the first thing that has to happen, or anything else can happen, is that Georgia has to, that Clemson's D-line doesn't wreck this football game.
Yeah.
And John Fitzpatrick can help make sure that happens.
All right, so you wanted to talk about some of the other things, not just getting the ball out quickly, but JT's ability to get the ball to all areas of the field.
Yeah, totally. So, Yeah, we've got some more good data there, and it's just kind of JT's passing grades on different throws. And so, yeah, if you look at his depths and just where he's throwing the ball, you don't see any huge holes in his game. Actually, the spots where he's graded the lowest are like behind the line of scrimmage. And I wouldn't be concerned about that. We know that JT Daniels can hit screen passes, so don't stress there. But yeah, I mean, these deep balls, like he's going to want to throw down the center of the field. And when they say deep center, that's between the numbers, not between the hashes. So that is a pretty wide, swath in the middle of the field. But man, I think that's a huge advantage that Georgia has in this game. Is just that Daniels is comfortable taking whatever the defense is going to give him. And, we're not in a situation where Georgia is going to have to like shove a square peg into a round hole because the quarterback is limited and the ball has to go to certain places because that's the only place he's comfortable throwing it. And like we saw that against Alabama last year with Stetson Bennett, right? Like Bennett loved to throw in the middle of the field and he wasn't super comfortable throwing other places. And in the second half of that game, they started keying on that and he started rifling balls into triple coverage and that was that. And so I think just with Daniels, like A, he sees the field really well, but B, he can make all the throws. And I think, the deep balls in this game, we're going to see them. And if Georgia can hit them, great. I think that they're going to have to hit one or two to loosen up this defense. But I think the intermediate and short throws are going to be just as important. Those are the building blocks of this offense. That's what moves the chains. That's what keeps momentum happening. And it also is going to influence that Clemson defense to, switch out of coverages and have to move around in a way that's going to favor Georgia.
Well, I wanted to talk also about our, dogs are returning second in Power 5 rushing yards. And I know that, hang on a second here. What do we do here? There we go. And, we've talked about Darnell. We've talked about the wide receivers. We talked about that. But let's not forget those 5 running backs, not even counting Lavasi Carroll, who can get the ball and do things and make explosive play out of the backfield. And I think that speaks to, again, winning that line of scrimmage. We're returning, so much production out of the backfield that, we talked about it with Tony from Waiting Since last Saturday. James Cook is kind of not the forgotten guy by any stretch, but I think he can be extremely explosive at coming out in different positions, coming out of the backfield, lining up in the slot. I'm excited to see how JT and you talk about getting the ball to a playmaker, quickly, and James Cook is right there. If it's Patrick and if Darnell plays for sure, but I mean, James Cook is legit. He showed right here. He just ran it right up the middle. So I kind of change it up. We're going to get back to the O-line and D-line play, but I just kind of led into what you're talking about. And if we can get these short, quick plays, take the pressure off JT, and then they have to keep, put 7 guys in the box, then like you talked about, JT can go all over the field and make some explosive plays over the top.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think, the important thing to remember about the last time we saw Clemson, I think everyone really remembers well watching Justin Fields throw for 6 touchdowns and shred them for 385 yards. But what people have forgotten is that Trey Sermon ran for 193 yards on 31 carries in that game. And he had a couple explosive runs, but a lot of it was just 6, 8, 10, 12-yard, pops like you're showing us right here. And, Georgia can do that on Saturday. It just opens up so much, man. Like, I truthfully think if Georgia can run the ball in this game and force Clemson to start bringing guys down towards the line of scrimmage, it could be a really long night for Clemson's defense just because at that point Georgia has them on their heels. And that secondary, Andrew Booth is a good player, but he did struggle against the elite teams they played last year. But there's just not really that lockdown guy back there, at least as we know in this moment, that can just kind of like put the handcuffs on somebody in man coverage. And so if Georgia is all of a sudden running the ball and they have to commit more guys to stopping the rush and they're stuck in some of these kind of cover zero type situations we were talking about earlier, it could be just a lot of fun for Georgia fans on Saturday night. I'll say that.
Well, here's the thing I wrote for Dog Sports that came out yesterday, and it's kind of the two line plays here. You can see that Clemson and Georgia are returning a lot of snaps. The interesting part is that Georgia is returning 2,500 snaps on the offensive line, and Clemson is returning even more snaps on the D line. But the games for Georgia that's like top 10 snaps, but only like 30th in actual game played. So Georgia was getting a lot of snaps on a lot of players. And not a lot of sacks given up by those guys. These are the returning guys. Does not include Trey Hill or anybody that's not on the team. These are the guys that are returning. And giving up only 43 pressures. You can see on the flip side of that, that PFF grade of 66.6 is tied for 6th in Power 5, and that's equal to what Alabama is returning on the D line. So this is a legit D line that's going to be trying to get JT off the spot and stop the run there. I mean, a lot of pressures, a lot of games. That's an experienced O line, D line there we got. And if we look at the players here, that Miles Murphy is the one that he's their Jordan Davis, at least in production there, with a 92% run, 92.5 PFF run grade against the run.
Freak, dude. He's a freak. He's a game record. I mean, that's the guy. I feel like Brzee gets talked about more, but Murphy's the guy that worries me the most if I'm trying to game plan against Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, 20 pressures, 5 sacks, 420 snaps last year. He's going to be clogging up the middle. On the other side of the line of scrimmage here, the guys that we've got that have game play and have PFF grades. I mean, Schaefer, Salyer, and Erickson are all going to be a huge part. Tate Ratledge, I think, if I read that right, it's going to be on the right guard. He's won a spot. Don't have much on him. He only got in the Auburn game. I think he only played in the Auburn game. But that's a lot of snaps, and those grades that we've got from Salyer and Schaefer are good grades. And it's a lot of snaps and so it's not an inexperienced line. It's a new line, guys moving around, but you see it all over the comments and all the blogs that, we're going to see what Matt Luke can do. And he's going to be in the national spotlight and everyone knows what's coming at him. So if the O-line can't get it done, it's going to be some pressure on him, but I think we've got everything we need to execute these plays, either whether it's over the top or these quick plays against the pressure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've talked about and you've talked about and done some really good stuff on Georgia's sweep blocking since Monken and Luke showed up, and kind of how Georgia's really gone back to truly pulling some of these interior linemen and getting those guys out on the edge. And I think that is perhaps a way for Georgia on Saturday night to just, again, kind of keep this defensive line off balance. I think we will see some of these types of plays where, guards are pulling and coming around and some double teams in certain spots to try and deal with a guy like Murphy or Brzee, and just creative sort of offensive line scheme. I don't expect Georgia to always just, try to man up one-on-one and get a push.
It's not going to be our typical zone blocking. I think we're going to be more creative, and I know we talked about last year going into what we might see out of Matt Luke and the Monken offense, but with with no spring and the craziness last season and the new system we were putting in, we didn't quite get to see it until the end of the year. But I'm excited to what he can do with a very loaded offensive line room and a full offseason to implement what he wants to get done on blocking.
100%. So you've got some data on Clemson's O-line too, right?
Yep. Here's the O-line. It's an experienced Clemson O-line, and not a lot of pressures and sacks given up. The grade there is good but not great. But it's a very experienced line. They are also replacing a center, and your conversation with on Hunter Sanford, I'm sorry, I forgot your on three Clemson guy's name, but
Matt Conley. Yeah.
Matt Conley. Thank you, Matt. I knew it was Matt. I just couldn't remember the last name. Matt, talked about the battle for the center didn't go quite as what they, according to him, didn't go quite as well as they expected. And I even read today on Twitter that they're going to be starting a couple, different guys are going to get snaps at center.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a big storyline. I think if I have my data correctly, and I know this is a lot of speculation, but I believe it was Brockhurst that they were, hoping, I think, to kind of lock down a position. And
I also saw Mason Trotter, I think, was going to.
Yeah, Trotter. Yeah. And so, I think there's they're talking about Bach, Brockhurst, yeah. Playing center, and so basically if he's going to play center, then there's going to be a true freshman starting next to him. That's from Anna Hickey at 24/7. She had tweeted that out earlier today. Sorry, I was trying to pull this back up in a thread. So that's going to be very interesting, right? Like to throw a true freshman out there against Georgia. And the other thing too is just that Bockhurst got put on skates versus Notre Dame. He really did. And not trying to, be rude or unfriendly or anything like that. It's just like when you look at the tape, he had a really rough night against Notre Dame, and all due respect to Notre Dame, but like what they have up front is nothing close to what he's going to see against Georgia. And so if you've got him, at center, and then I think the true freshman she's referring to is a kid named Marcus Tate. So it's like if you've got a guy at center that's struggling and a true freshman at guard, and you're asking them to hold down Carter, Wyatt, and Davis, good luck. And so, when we get into the prediction part, I'll kind of give my spiel on this, but like this goes back to the thing I keep talking about, Josh, is that there is I think a decently sized chance that Georgia's defensive line just Super Bowls this game and just wrecks the shit out of everything, and just Clemson's not able to do a lot of the fundamental stuff that they should be able to do because DJ's having to, take off and run backwards at the snap, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's what can they? We've talked about it a bunch. It's like, well, if Plan A is not working, you better have a Plan B, and if Plan B is, if Georgia's Plan A is to get pressure to him, and that's going to be what can we do if DJ starts running. I like our linebackers in that situation. If he's not getting time to throw those deep balls like he likes to throw. Matt Conley talks about how much he liked to throw the deep ball, and sometimes last year DJ threw it when it wasn't advisable to do that. And certainly we've seen that arm, but there's been a lot of, we kind of highlighted some of DJ's plays, but he's only got 2 games, and they're not all perfect. And I think getting him off his spot, not letting him set up and get through his reads, I think that it sets up quite nicely, especially if there's a little moving, like you say, some young players starting and moving around throughout that game, and you've got Carter and Jalen and Wyatt. You got Carter, Jordan Davis, and Wyatt coming down at you. I think you're right. I mean, if that goes like we want it to go, it could be a very long night for the Tigers on offense.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I mean, I think talking about DJ, all that we've heard. Not all that we heard. I shouldn't say that, but we've heard a lot of people. My dad was watching college football live in there earlier this afternoon. I came walking through the living room, and it's Desmond Howard and Greg McElroy just like raving about all the yards that DJ threw for her in the Notre Dame game, which is true. But like, if you look at the amount of yards in that game that came after the catch, it is very, very, very significant. We covered that on a previous show, but like the majority of his throws that night were on screens. And we know he's got a big arm. We know he likes to throw the ball down the field. I'm sure he's got downfield accuracy. I'm not trying to say that he's not a great quarterback, because I think that he is going to be a great quarterback, and he already is a very good quarterback. But like, if you look at his PFF grades compared to JT, JT was a 91 passing grade when kept clean. DJ's a 78, right? JT's, grade is, in the 80s when he's blitzed. DJ's is a 71.5. So I think like the dude is on the Dr. Pepper commercials. He's, he was a super recruit. Like the way that we've come to look at him within kind of just like the college football ecosystem is the way that we normally look at a veteran Heisman candidate quarterback. And I think that he's going to be that one day. But I haven't heard a single person like bring up the fact like this dude has never played in front of a full college stadium. The 2 times that he did start last year, Clemson started kind of slow. And I don't know that if that I think if that happens against Georgia, I don't know that they can just flip that switch and all of a sudden, go score on 3 or 4 straight possessions. Georgia's defense is too good for that. And
I don't think Georgia's giving up a 28-10 lead, of course. And like you said, both games it was impressive, especially the Boston College. I mean, that game looked to be like it was going to be a loss, and he made the plays. But like, if Georgia can put up and get a lead, they're not gonna blow it like those 2 defenses that he came back on. And Georgia's loaded, and Darian Kendrick, is he wants to have a great game. You just know it does. And I think are we hearing that Tyke Smith is going to play?
Man, I've heard so much stuff both ways that I don't. I definitely don't want to sit here and pretend like I know anything definitive, because I think these things are so kind of like depends on how he feels that morning type of deal.
He's going to make the trip, right?
He's definitely making the trip, I'm sure. And, I did have someone tell me earlier this week that like he was going to play. I also had that, a couple of people tell me that they expect Darnell to play. I just don't know. And so I don't want to sit here and, put anything out there that's not going to be true or anything like that. I think that if Tyke plays, it's probably a bigger boost than if Darnell plays, maybe. But like with Darnell, with a foot injury, it's like he knows where he has to go. He's the guy running routes. I think for Tyke, I worry about him a little bit because like where he has to go is dictated by, what the receiver is doing. So I don't think they're going to put anybody out there that's not ready to go and that can't do their job.
I think from all that news, I think what you can say as a Georgia fan, things are trending the right way. For some of those guys that looked to be unlikely to play, some of them they're all trending the right way, and which is good news. Even if they don't play in Clemson, it's good news for a quick return to being on the field.
100%, yeah. I mean, Monty Rice, he played all of last season with a foot injury and was in pain and all of that, but like his performance really didn't dip due to that injury. And so I think we could see those guys maybe go out there and split time with other players, maybe be used in some, special packages or specific ways. But I think that if they don't play, Georgia's got a very good plan for how to manage that.
All right. You want to try to do some prediction here? Who do you think is going to be the MVP of the game for Georgia?
All right. Hold on. Let me talk through this a little bit, and then
you can talk to it all you want. All right, I threw that at you.
So no, you're good. So I mean, I think just looking at this entire game, right? Like, to answer your first question, I think that one of those guys on the interior line is probably going to be the MVP of this game for Georgia. That's the quickest way to get anywhere is a straight line, and the spot that's closest to the quarterback is the guy that lines up right over the center. And so if Bockhurst or whoever is playing in that spot is a little green or maybe just not, truthfully, if whoever's sitting there isn't a stud, then it's going to be a long night for Clemson with Davis and Devontae Wyatt coming over the center. So I think that is probably, in my mind, who's your MVP. Daniels is also an obvious potential choice. but I think we kind of expect that from him at this point. So, like, when I look at this game, you just did a really good job of breaking down the line of scrimmage matchup. I think at the quarterback position, Georgia does have a guy that's more experienced and that is more proven. And, I know JT Daniels has only played like 16, 17 college games, but like we've seen him make some throws that we haven't seen DJ make. And we've, seen him go onto the road and as a true freshman, play in some big games and some big environments. So with Daniels, like, I feel like Georgia has a little bit of an edge from a psychological kind of poise standpoint, from an experience standpoint. I think DJ is ultimately the guy that's like going to be the better NFL prospect or the more talented guy, but there's a difference between that and just what matters for this game on Saturday night, right? So, like, Deshaun Watson played against Hudson Mason back in 2014, and Georgia got that win because Watson was a young quarterback, right? So I think that Georgia has an edge a little bit there at the quarterback position. I think a lot of this game just kind of comes down to how much has Clemson's defense grown up? Has that secondary, really raised their level over the offseason? If so, then maybe things are more difficult for Georgia. But when we heard that Tyke and Darnell were going to be out, I kind of like went from a spot of being positive about this game to feeling like Georgia's probably going to lose this game. Then kind of going back through the tape and looking at just the raw data and what Georgia needs to do to win versus what Clemson needs to do to win, I think that Georgia has more paths to win this game than Clemson does.
That's I love that take. That's exactly how I feel. Like, if I feel like they've got a better plan B, should, like you talked about, getting the ball out quickly, or, if they drop back, I think that JT can put the ball where it needs to go. So I think the plan B for Georgia, if plan A is not working, is exactly more paths to win this game. I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, for Clemson, Matt was very adamant that Clemson is not going to be able to run the ball on Georgia. And so for them to win this game, I think that DJ has to go out and throw for 350 or 400 yards. And that's a lot. That's a lot to ask, man. It's just a lot to ask. And I think the other thing that has kind of been slept on with Clemson's wide receiving core is Justin Ross is back, but we haven't seen him play football in, a couple of years. But you've got Ross, you've got Frank Ladson, and then you got Nada. And those are a bunch of really tall, athletic, blue-chip wide receivers. But that group only has 4 100-yard receiving games in 6 combined seasons among them. And all of those games belong to Justin Ross, who we don't really know, where he is physically. I think those guys are freaks physically. I think that they are great athletes. But, like, going back and looking how Clemson beat, Notre Dame last year when DJ was the quarterback, and Boston College too, it was ETN, Amari Rogers, Cornell Powell. It was a lot of short, quick game, run after the catch type stuff. Will Shipley scares me, the true freshman for Clemson. That's he's from, like, I think Weddington or Matthews, somewhere close to Charlotte, and this will be his first game. And I think he's a guy that could be like, the kid coming out of the backfield on the wheel route. And we've seen that before with Georgia, but the more that I go through this, I think Georgia's advantage at the line of scrimmage on defense is so great that
and just listening to you talk through this, it kind of reminds me of Desmond Ridder for Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. He had a great, first 2.5 quarters of that game, but once Georgia got home and got pressure, and that was, they lost an offensive lineman, and that we exploited, Georgia's defense took over that game and kept us in it enough for JT to get 10 points there late in the game. So I like, if Matt Conley on 3 is saying that Clemson can't run the ball on Georgia or won't be able to run with much success, I like a one-dimensional DJ, especially getting pressure on, like we keep talking about, the possible weakness on that, the use of that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's like if you can put Adam Anderson on the field and, let him just pin his ears back 2 out of every 3 downs, that's a nightmare, man. And that's not even talking about the guys on the interior or just your DNs and your regular edge players. So I hate to say this because, like, when I put out some SEC predictions last week, I had Georgia 11-1, and when I did that, I was expecting to predict Clemson to win this game because it was kind of on the heels of that injury news. But just like the data and the film bear it out. I think that Georgia wins this game. I really do, and I think that
Go Dogs.
I think they win this game. Like, I don't think it's as high scoring as everybody thinks it's going to be, but I think that Georgia can score 35 points on this defense.
That's a lot of that would, if you're telling me
but it's not.
I'm not saying it's like it's impossible. Yeah. If you're telling me that Georgia can get to 30, I like our chances.
Right.
I really do.
I
think
agree with you.
I really, if Georgia, I think the team that can get to 30 is going to win this game, and that's easy to say. Well, that's a lot of points, but in today's game, that's Clemson and LSU and high powered offenses are putting 40 up a game. So getting to 30 points is going to be good because both these defenses are good. And I think I like a 31-24, 31-27 Georgia game. I do, and I think my MVP is James Cook. I'm all on James Cook this year. I think if Darnell doesn't play or if, we've got some guys coming back from injury, I think he's going to be lining up in the slot, and he's going to be back there with whether Chris with Kendall Milton and Zamir out, and 2 back sets. You can. I think he's going to be getting a lot of touches, and I think he could be. I think Tony said it on our show and on his podcast that he could be the leading receiver in this game.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a chance. I mean, I think him and McIntosh both. I think that we could see a big play from those guys, like one of those guys or both of those guys coming out of the backfield or lining up in the slot, and I think. Those angle routes, that we've shown here, I think a ton this offseason, that angle route that Cook ran against Missouri on like 3rd and 11, where, he ran a beautiful route and JT put it right on the money and it was gone. He's over with. I think that, Georgia could kind of stress this defense to the point where we see a couple plays like that where somebody catches an 8 to 12 yard pass, and all of a sudden they look up and there's nobody there and they're gone. Because that's just sort of how Venables schemes things. But yeah, score wise, I'm gonna go, like in that, let's say 34 to 28 or something like that.
We've looked at this game so much. Our heads
I know,
are
man. I mean, like, picking scores is hard.
Yeah.
What I will say though is, like, and I'm gonna knock on wood here because I don't want to jinx anything, but like, it really wouldn't shock me if a couple things just kind of happen the way that maybe they should happen on paper. It wouldn't shock me if Georgia wins this game like pretty comfortably. Like if it's not, just a ball buster down to the end, it wouldn't shock me for Georgia to win this game by like 10 to 17 points. And I think that's all about the defensive line. I think Clemson is going to be great. I think that DJ is going to be great. I just think that we as a college football public are making a ton of assumptions on who he is and what he's going to be. And he's never been in this environment before. And we haven't seen him, in front of a full stadium and, And we haven't seen them play a defense this fast either. Ohio State's probably close. But I think that Georgia may well have the fastest defense this side of Alabama in college.
I mean, and he didn't play Ohio State, so he hadn't seen it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he played Notre Dame. You're right. So it's going to be interesting, man. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a great game. I would encourage everyone, whether it goes really well or it goes really poorly, to keep a level head because it's week 1, and if Georgia wins this game.
Yeah, we've all talked about this. It's like, oh, we get the path to the. It's the same thing. Enjoy this game, and let's not worry about.
Yeah, totally.
Let's not worry. I mean, Kirby's not thinking about anything other than this game, and I think exactly. Enjoy this game. Enjoy the full stadium. Enjoy being on the national stage. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I will say that I think if either coach finds themselves up in this game and with the opportunity to tack on a couple extra scores, they're going to do it because neither of these coaches wants to play the other a second time this year.
That's a good point.
And if they have to play again, the advantage is going to go to whoever lost this game the first time around. So, like, if Georgia is winning this game and they have a chance to go and kind of put their foot on Clemson's throat, they're going to do it because, like, if you look at Clemson's schedule, it's garbage the rest of the year. I mean, they'll be a 3-touchdown favorite against everyone else they play until the ACC title game. And so they may not have an opportunity to play anyone else that can kind of like bump them back up. That's all speculation. I think the percentage of that happening is like between, 2 and 5. So we probably shouldn't worry about it that much, but yeah, man, I think this is kind of Georgia's moment right here. I think this will just be an opportunity for them to maybe kind of get a little bit of the crap off of their back and go out there, have fun, win this game. It doesn't mean anything for the rest of the season, like we said, but I think they win this game, man. I just think that D-line is too much. I think that pass rush is too much.
All right. That's it. We're going to be back later in the week. And we're going to be talking, any late breaking news. Maybe we'll find an interview. Maybe we'll have some fun, but talk about some of the other games. But it's game week. 100%. And we will be in touch. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please leave us ratings and reviews on the podcast, and follow us on Twitter. I am dog_stats. My friend Graham is Dog Out West on Twitter. We both are writing for dogsports.com. And we're excited to be talking about stuff, and please follow and interact. We love getting the comments from angry fans of the opposite fan base. We really do. It's a lot of fun. Graham, what do you got? Anything else? Tiger Nets or
Tiger Net. We appreciate your engagement too, even if you hate us. No, man, just thank you as always for putting on a great show, and I'm excited to get back with you on Thursday and talk about this game some more. It's finally here, and it's a fun one to start the year off with, and enjoy it, man. We'll be back soon on Thursday.
All right, with that, we're out, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.